Okay, I'm working on a full preemptive guide that I'm trying to release in the near future, maybe within a week or two, that has everything you need to know, or only everything. However, in the meantime, I kind of wanted to make a video that kind of acts as a proof of concept for a specific type of scanning you do in the stronghold. How I learned preemptive, and how I think a lot of people only know it, is to avoid hovering blocks, chunk borders and boxes off, just getting a pure spike on the spawner. This is nice because all three spawners possibilities, no chest, chest behind, chest in front, all give distinct spikes that you can pick up. The reason that you never hover blocks is because in examples like the no chest spike, it's just completely undetectable. It's only detectable with the big orange spike when the chest is behind. However, if you use hovering blocks and hitboxes, it actually allows for both the big orange spike and the average reading spike, which I'll show in case you don't know what it looks like. This is what the spike normally looks like. When you hover blocks, it basically disappears, but using hitboxes makes it look very similar to big orange. This is a pretty nice, convenient thing, and even with these two spikes being the only ones possible, I was still planning on using it as the primary method of preemptive. However, in the RIP server today, I was talking to Chloe about this, and she realized, or she had a revelation that ties back to the video Rubly made, maybe a year or two ago, called Preemptive Wiggle, or called Hitbox Wiggling. The idea is that when you have a spawner rendered somewhere on your screen, activating hitboxes will alter your pie, due to the little entity inside of the spawner, having a hitbox. Putting it all together, it didn't seem obvious to me, but to Chloe, she realized this. When you are getting the hitbox on, chunk border, or block hovered spike for a pure spawner, the spike that you're getting right here is fairly distinct. However, it is shared with things like a chunk with only 4 chests and no spawners. However, there is, using Hitbox Wiggle, a way to differentiate this from a fake spike. As you can see, on a stronghold, on a pure reading that doesn't really give me a spike, if I turn off hitboxes, my spike changes very significantly. It almost cuts the block entity's value in half. However, if I were to go to a spike with only 4 chests, as you can see over here, the value that I have with the same scan is very similar, about 48%, but when I turn off hitboxes, it doesn't change. This is a huge combination, because to me, it makes it seem like there's no reason not to turn on hitboxes and hover blocks when you scan. This is beneficial in another way, primarily because, it's like 12:08, it's like midnight. I've been doing this video I've been doing primitive stuff for 3 days straight, 10 hours each, so I'm kind of exhausted, but the other benefit is when you have to move deeper into the stronghold. I'll talk about this more in later videos, but on a lot of strongholds, you're unable to get the spike due to some sort of chunk culling. I found it may even be up to like 10% of strongholds, so 1 in 10 strongholds, you cannot get the spike from starter. The solution for that, again, I'm going to detail this more in the preemptive video, so don't care. This isn't like too important for now. You'll know why soon. But the reason it's helpful is that once you the main fix for chunk culling is to cross a chunk border. Once you cross chunk border in a lot of directions, however, it's going to be hard to scan in every direction without hovering blocks. So since we can get every spike while hovering blocks, including the pure spike, it makes it really nice. Because now there's no reason to force not hovering blocks without hitboxes on. To me, it almost seems like there's a chance this strat can just completely replace classic preemptive, where you have no hitboxes and you're scanning for your pure spikes, just because it is fully consistent now. The only downside is when it comes to mob spawners, non-silverish mob spawners. This is because the spikes that are usually like pretty different and easy to differentiate. I'll go ahead and show you the spikes actually. The spikes that are fairly easy to differentiate with pure values, they maybe are a little bit trickier when we're doing hover hitbox strats. I'll turn up my volume for this. So the per value for a spider spawner, this is really different than the average reading spike that we got. When we have hitbox and hovering, however, this spike is actually possible to get with a silverfish spawner and like a certain number of chests. I think when I had a spider spawner by itself, it's the exact same spike as my big orange with an additional chest in front of it. While this is worrying, it may seem like a big issue, you have to remember that 3 of the 4 mob spawners that are not silverfish spawn in dungeons, which mean that every time you get a reading for them, there's going to be a chest rendered, as well as chests being very common in Stronghold. So you'll see that when I have a chest, this is a very obviously fake spike. I have 63% on block entities, when the highest I really ever get from a real spike is anywhere from like 58 to 60. This same principle applies to skeleton spawners. Zombie spawners are a bit trickier. I'll talk about that a little more in a second, but cave spider spawners, this is probably the biggest flaw with hover hitbox scanning. You are relying on there to be a chest in the stronghold, because in mine shafts, chests do not naturally spawn. So in the case of getting a pure spike from a cave spider spawner, I think this is a cave spider spawner. Is this regular spider? Yeah, cave spider spawner. This 60% spike that you're getting here, while it is on the upper end of real spikes you get, it is completely possible. So this maybe is the biggest weakness. This spike is like very obviously fake, but for some reason the block entity's value is a lot closer to what we're getting. As for zombie spawners, again, I don't think there's really any tech that can help with this. Granted, it's just the exact same spike. However, going back to the way to get a pure reading, right? There's no chest rendered. You can get a pure reading by wiggling the hitbox, right? This ratio that you get right here, with hitboxes on, this is basically impossible to get with a zombie spawner, because in a dungeon there's 2 different chest spawns, which is really nice because it would just be an extra case where it sucks. It also makes the hitbox wiggle strat on the pure spawner even more clear. It's going to be virtually always a silverfish spawner when you get it. Last thing I want to cover, let me think. Oh, right. In general, for spawners, when you have multiple spikes, that means you have multiple spawners. My rule of thumb is to go towards the spawner with a lower block entities value. You notice that all of these spikes, excluding zombie spawner, all these spikes with a chest in front of them are much higher than any of the real spikes. So when you have chests in a stronghold, you're probably just gonna get a smaller spike, and it's gonna be the silver spike. It isn't perfect, but it is a pretty consistent solution in my testing. That's basically everything there's to know about this method. I'll talk a little like chunk culling. I don't want to get into because I'm going to get into it really deep when the full video comes out. But in the meantime, you might want to experiment getting your values. For example, this value, it'll probably be different for people. Seeing how it changes when you toggle hitboxes, getting your hover hitbox values on the other 2 spikes. An important thing that you need to check, this is a kind of side note, but the total mobs you've rendered, or the T value, this number will slightly change the block entity spike you get. When you're in this Llama's practice map, which is on the original Preemptive document, I might link it in the description if I remember. When you're on this map, you're getting like the higher end spikes that you can get. In a real run, if you had like a crazy stronghold with like over 100 entities, this could be doled down pretty hard. I think I had 42% in a real run. That's the last thing to consider. But it is important to note that T value affecting spikes, it affects every single spike, every single spawner spike. So it's not like it's only going to be for this pure thing. It's going to affect everything. Okay, I'm just going to do some scans with this method, and I'll kind of explain my thought processes. I'm not going to get too into the nitty-gritty. But in general, I've been practicing on easy, so I have mobs. Mobs are still an issue, but we have some tools to bypass that. Again, get into that later. So I have a spike here. This is 63%. This is very, very, very rarely possible with a real spike. So if I had a spike this big, I would personally continue to scan for a second spike. If you have no other spike, I would also look for the pure spike. This is kind of similar to that, but when I turn off hitboxes, it doesn't change, so I know it's fake. The last solution we have is to look at the spike more accurately. And you may see that when I'm looking at more accurately, I only have a 57% chunk spike. Now this could be real or fake. Even now, it could either be there's a silver spawner with a pretty average spike here, and there's a lot more chests over here, which is leading to that huge spike when I'm using a less accurate scanning method like 30FV. Or it could be there's a pure like cave spawner spider over here, there's chests over here, and somewhere hidden is the portal room. But yeah, looks like in this case, it makes complete sense. I was loading in probably maybe one chest when I was looking over here, but once I had this like row loaded, I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe even 4 or like 5 extra chests loaded, which would every single chest like slightly increases your block entity's value. So that explains that one. Didn't really get to explain too much about the method on that one, just because I kind of got that like double spawner thing that I wanted to show other ways to like conquer it. I'll do a couple more though, just for an example. If you have any questions on this, DM me. Again, like there's gonna be a more comprehensive guide coming out soon, but I just want people to kind of start practicing this and learn their spikes as soon as possible. I think this is like the best way to scan now, and I've spent a lot of time on this. So in this case, we don't have any spikes, which could be a few different reasons. It could be because there's mobs rendered near the portal room, which we would generally fix by going thinner. You have less chance for rendering the mobs. So I use 30FV and thin. You can also just use iZoom. The second reason is that there's chunk culling. Generally when like, this happens, like a wall ends up chunk border. The third reason is we have that pure spike. So that's what I'm gonna check for now. I'm gonna look for about my spike with hitboxes on. You'll notice that I have about the same entities out on the practice map, so my spike should be fairly similar. You'll see in this direction I have 44, but it's not changing when I hitbox hover or when I disable hitboxes. Here's the spike, and here's this spike. So it appears that it's probably an issue with culling. I'm gonna look where it is and see if that's true. Yeah, so this just being in, well, actually, this may be able to pick up, and my issue is I didn't scan too low. This is actually a good point. Yeah, sometimes your issue is that if it's in a subchunk directly below you, you're just not scanning low enough. That's something I probably need to mention more in the document. It's actually another just like lesson learned, is that one of the steps while you're still scanning the portal is probably to look down and see if it's directly below you. Yep. It's kind of nice we're getting a lot of the edge cases in these examples, so I can really just kind of show everything that happens with this strat. I'm using MPK for this, which uses real strongholds, by the way. So it isn't like PO practice where there's never going to be secret rooms or anything. Okay, this spike, it seems like I have a real spike. So you'll notice when I go thin, the spike in this direction goes away. Although this can happen due to like chunk culling and some weird, really in-depth, like rare scenario, most likely what's happening is that when I go thin, in one of these areas, I'm rendering the mob spawner, and in one, I'm rendering the chest, but not at the same time. So I can go over here maybe, toggle hitboxes. Hitboxes are on. Not getting any change. Not getting any change. Not getting any change. Not getting any change. Okay. Let's go ahead and see what's happening on this one. So this looks like just an example of chunk culling. I'll just show a quick brief like example here. But if I'm looking at what chunks are rendered, it looks like there's going to be one of these vital chunks is just not going to be rendered, maybe. Is it? Okay, this may be like the most, that like really complex example I was talking about, where there's some sort of like, I really don't want to get into it, but basically, besides the portal room spike, there's another like requirement chunk I have to have loaded in order to get a spike here. Which is why I get on 30FV, but when I'm getting thinner, even in the right direction, even like checking for pure spike, I'm not getting anything. I'm guessing if I like cross the chunk border and rescanned, yep, the spike is just really obvious, even with thin. Again, this is like a pretty rare edge case. It's crazy I got it, but I'll explain that more in the preemptive video. But even in that last case, it's important to note I did get a spike in the right direction. So even if I like didn't want to like overthink it like I did, you can still just send that direction in that case. Okay, this is a huge spike. 59, but it's not impossible. This is 59 as well. Let's go thinner to load in a little bit less chess. So what it looks like is we have a spike in every direction. For me, I would turn on chunk borders. Let me undisable them. And I'd look for a direction. I mean, it could just be under me. Okay. I mean, okay. It's just this chunk. That makes sense. It's so insane. I roll this during this like 4 sample size video. I'm gonna do a couple more. Sorry, this video is gonna be a lot of rambling, but bear with me. Maybe I'll timestamp it so that like people don't have to look at the runs if they don't need to. This is like bonus shit. Okay, a spike, thin, get a more exact angle, run in that direction. Just gives us a direct angle at the port room. Really simple. In my experience, that happened 65% of the time. You get one of the 2 spikes that you always can pick up. So not even having to do that preemptive wiggle shit, or the hitbox wiggle shit, 65%. I was getting a positive, like a easy answer on. Yep, here we go. Only 1 spike in a straight line. Just gonna be mid. I mean, really, really quick. You don't really lose a lot of time during these scans. It's really nice. I'm gonna choose to scan really fast too, and just try and notice the pie moving like this. I can just keep scanning, and then when I hover over it, it starts increasing, and then I can go back there and rescan. And look at that. Now I have a quick spike that I could have gotten in 2 seconds, I think, just directly at the portal room. I'll do one more for good measure. Maybe this will have some weird scenario. But yeah, expect either one video or multiple videos coming soon with a lot about preemptive. But hopefully this gave you kind of a good rundown on what Hitbox Preemptive is and how to use it. All of the upsides and downsides. I think it might be objective that it's just the best method now. Again, you're getting 75% of chunks without leaving the portal. In the presence of mobs, you're as accurate as other methods. You don't lose anything zooming in too much since we can still detect a pure spike. And in the instance of chunk culling, when we know we have to cross a chunk border, it's easier to scan with hitboxes on because you're in these tight corridors where it's really hard to get every angle without hovering a block. Yeah. Hopefully this is nice in the meantime. Bye-bye.